I'm not an apologist for anybody. Do it right. You know, do your job. Do your job. Do it right. And understand you work for the people. If you think you don't work for the people and you're an elected official, please turn in your resignation immediately.
Labor has always been a very important part. It's you were a union worker, moving barrels of beer.
I've been in several unions. I've been in the brewery workers union, the warehouse workers union, the laborers union, the teachers union when I taught out at UMass Dartmouth. So I've been in 4 different unions and always have supported the idea of organized workplaces. I think that they work extremely well when there's respect on both sides and when people understand the issues on both sides. When they don't on either side, then it becomes problematic.
Yeah, you and I did, when I was a selectman, that's how we got to know each other, actually. When I was a selectman out in Freetown, you represented the municipal workers out there.
Police and fire, yeah. I you know, it's funny, when I came to New Bedford in 1978, I was hired by John Exafaris, who was the #1 labor lawyer in southeastern Massachusetts, and John represented labor unions from P-Town, probably just south of Boston, all the way to the Rhode Island line. Thousands and thousands of organized workers. So it was everything from collective bargaining, grievances, arbitrations, then different ancillary type of work that you do for common working middle-class family issues that would come up. Buy a house, need a will, workers' comp, whatever it might be. So I got to see Massachusetts very quickly, this part of Massachusetts very quickly from an organized labor standpoint. Since that time now, and it's 39 years, I always like to say that John, I don't know, ever lost a union, but an awful lot of the unionized places left. So slowly but surely, you've seen that manufacturing base that existed in this basin of the state, from an organized labor perspective, disappear, and it really has affected the living standard and the wages in this area dramatically.
Yeah. You and I were talking the other night about a one of the unions you represented and where they worked, the name of the company, and just in the course of the conversation, you mentioned you had 1,500 workers. I know that company's gone now. And
Chamberlain Manufacturing had 1,500 workers, which represented 1,500 of their middle-class families that you ended up with a PhD in shell manufacturing, and you went there in many cases. Sadly, left school, 10th, 11th grade, went to work. You needed a strong back, but then you needed to develop the expertise. There was more required to manufacturing a shell than simply lifting a shell up. Yeah, artillery shells. Yeah, that was a company-owned military manufacturer. Their only customer is the U.S. government. You and I can't roll in there and say we'd like to buy a couple of shells. So it's all the U.S. government. And it was a situation where, for whatever reason, and I have theories on an awful lot of reasons, but for whatever reason, they moved, and this shows the genius of the federal government. They moved that plant, or the capacity for that plant, down to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, and within about 3 years, then it had nothing to do with Harvey. That plant was flooded out. Right. So you had a great plant in New Bedford. You had fantastic workers, great efficiency, finest product. I mean, they weren't building cannonballs. They were building artillery shells that were aerodynamic, that had all kinds of very, very interesting technology in them. And the men and women there were completely dedicated to the job they did in the United States of America. Right. And they ended up all losing their job. And I still see many people that I represented at Chamberlain throughout this area doing different things. Some have landed very well. Others had a very difficult time.
I mean, when you think about a payroll of 1,500 people, union jobs, with a full work schedule, the amount of money that's pumping, and that's what New Bedford needs, large payrolls. When you think of just 1,500, the multiplier effect of that,
Right, I would have taken Amazon, by the way, into New Bedford in a moment.
Sure.
That's going to be up near that. Perhaps I want to have the same salary and benefits that a place like Chamberlain had. But you need jobs. You need people working. You need people to be able to look at a possibility of an opportunity and moving forward. Now, just to not dwell on Chamberlain, but that was completely needless. That was a government decision. They decided to move.
What year roughly
that
do you remember?
manufacturing. It started in about 88, 89, 90, 91, 92.
Okay.
By then they were pretty well putting things in Cosmoline and then shipping it elsewhere. So it wasn't as if also that they mothballed the plant. They took the plant apart. Ducey-Schwa Industry was the owner of Chamberlain Manufacturing. They also had a plant that they had two different plants that I remember. They had one down in Scranton, Pennsylvania area. That one continues to operate. Then they also had a machine gun manufacturing plant that I believe was up in Maine, and it was fledgling at the time. They were putting it together at the time. That one, I believe, they continue to do that. They also make things like garage door openers. They have race horses. They own the Arlington Park out in Chicago. And I have to say, a good group to work with and cared about the workers. Now, there are
probably political realities, right, to why they had to move?
Big political realities at that time. So and that basically, that's why you see plant closings, you see base closings when it comes to the military. It's why we didn't end up keeping the jobs at Bianco, manufacturing that were doing the knapsacks, and they ended up going down to Puerto Rico. So here's what it comes down to, though. We had, and I don't want to dwell on the idea that we lost these jobs, because we know we lost them beginning in the early 80s up until, about 2000. In about 20 years, we lost about 20,000 manufacturing jobs in New Bedford. But let's just, if we can for a minute, it was Paulding Manufacturing. It was Morse Cutting Tool. It was Continental Screw. It was Goodyear. It was Chamberlain. I would, it was Aravox. I'll leave out 20 of these different factories that we had.
Right.
Everywhere you go, and by the way, that was the other thing. They were in every neighborhood. So it wasn't as if we had this gigantic industrial area in New Bedford. New Bedford was an industrial area, period, the whole city.
It's why there are houses without driveways, because people could walk to work, church, the market. And
a lot of our housing stock is mill stock,
right,
to support the mills. The other thing I would say is same, and you can textiles, clothing. I mean, it's all left. Now the interesting thing is, and I don't want to spend today on this because there's an awful lot of great holiday-related type of.
Plus, it's our back-to-school show too.
It's our back-to-school show, which is very important.
Right.
And I want to talk about that a little bit, and I want to give a shout-out to the work that's being done over at the police department right now, loading up a gigantic tractor-trailer to take down to Texas, which is awe-inspiring, makes you really feel good about the spirit of humanity in New Bedford.
Right.
I want to mention that for a minute, and Donnie Williams, who got it kicked off, and now every police officer that I know is over there helping load a truck, and people are pouring in right now. So to get off for 1 second this idea of where our jobs went, I want to say this. Please, everyone in New Bedford, if you have a moment, just a moment, if you have a can of beans, if you got a couple of extra bottles of water, if you have something, one of my favorites, Chef Boyardee, whatever it might be, put it in a bag, go down to the police station on Rockdale Avenue for a moment. Someone will greet you very, very enthusiastically and take that from you, and the next time it is seen, it'll be down in Houston.
Right.
And the people in Houston really need our help. They're getting help from everywhere in this country, but they could use our help, and I know they wouldn't think twice about helping us here.
Right.
The one thing that I've had an opportunity in all the time that I've been working in national politics is I've happened to have gotten to know a lot of people from Texas. They are a very, very interesting group of Americans, but they will help. Their hearts are as big as any.
Oh yeah.
And and one of the ones that I got to know the best was Bob Strauss, who was the chair of the DNC. People like the great Texans will literally walk to you to help you. They talk, the great state of Texas. They talk about they're gonna. One day, they'll be their own country. They are American through and through.
Well, there's a story.
We need to help them out.
There's a story in the New York Times, about the disaster and these guys. They call them these different Cajun Navy that they poured in from Louisiana to help out, and they're there and they're trying to talk to people to guess, like, where do you think we ought to go? And this guy says, well, I think I got to go over here. And he says, but hold on a second. And he reaches in his wallet and pulls out $300 bills and hands it and says, hey, Texans, take care of each other, you know? And these guys said, like, they just can't even believe how great it is down there. I mean, that isn't.
Well, Louisiana sadly had its own trial now 12 years ago, right around now, and everyone down there understands that your neighbor's best ally. So I think what we can do here is provide. I'm sure we have manpower down there, people power, but on the other hand,
it's also
you got a can of beans. Just bring it to the
police station. It's also not out of the question that we could be the next Houston. It's happened here before. 54, 38. We had some lesser hurricanes, but still some bad damage down here. But we could just as easily get a Cat 4.
Our infrastructure in the United States is not built for the 100-year storm. We're now having 100-year storms every 6 weeks. We are not built for a 2, 3, 4, 500-year storm, period. I don't know that you could be. You literally would have to build a drain the size of New Bedford that drains down to the other side of the earth in order to take care of that kind of water. But I do think that, they're talking about Texas storm barriers, different breakwaters, and then they're also talking about a drainage system that they've neglected for a long time. It probably makes more sense to spend the money on America's infrastructure than building a wall between the United States and Mexico, quite honestly. I would hope that Congress, working with the president, would sit down and try and figure out how to begin to put people to work on important 21st century projects like this American infrastructure, whether it's roads, whether it's water retainage or water removal systems, but whatever it might be, clean water. We need to do it. We need to do it pretty quickly, because you can see that we're being dealt these type of catastrophic natural disasters pretty quickly. So we got to get on it.
We're speaking to Scott Lang, the former mayor of New Bedford, about all things. This is our back to school show as well as our Labor Day show. We'll be here till 1 o'clock. If you'd like to give us a call, you can, 508-996-0500. Thanks for holding. You're live on WBSM.
Can we call again or no?
Yeah, give me a call.
Okay.
You're here. Talk.
I hear the mayor, the ex-mayor talking, and I hear him we're not prepared. Hold on. I hear him we're not prepared. And I'm hearing we have all these problems. Why we should not have these problems, and why don't we hear on accountability? The unions are gone, and why did those unions leave this area? But we still kept a strong police union. We still kept a strong municipality union. And in Freetown, those guys in the municipality, 3 guys make more than the guy running the show on the highway department. So that's a big mess. But in any event, the regular people are not responsible for this. Yes, we know in our hearts we give because we have to give every day. But there's been a lot of leadership, Mr. Mayor, that hasn't. They've gotten paid, they've got collecting the taxes, and they haven't produced.
Hey, thanks for the call, Mayor. Answer that for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that call, and I think that everyone, including obviously the elected officials, would look at it and say, when you look at what happened in Texas, we haven't produced. And I would think that it's a combination of very lax zoning and regulations in Texas regarding watershed, regarding wetlands, regarding water removal, water retainage that has caused the flooding. They do have a reservoir system that they thought would stand them well, and it does in normal weather conditions. But first of all, it's unlikely anywhere in America that they sit down and say, okay, how do we withstand the 500-year storm? I think most people try and play the odds. That means private sector as well as the public sector. I mean, the manufacturing installations down in Texas haven't exactly stood up and said, the reason that we don't have any problems with the refineries, the reason we don't have any problems with our chemical plants is because we planned for the 500-year storm. Right. They said we expected to be in pretty good shape. We had 3 different generators backing us up. This is private sector now. We had 3 different generator systems backing us up. We had a nitrogen system, which was supposed to cool our chemicals. But who in God's name would have thought that we're going to have a 500-year flood? So I'm not going to in any way say that this is a failing of the U.S. government or elected officials. And by the way, it's pretty easy to throw elected officials into a gigantic colander and then attempt to say, well, these are elected officials. Your elected officials are people at every level of government who, some of their long time, some of their not so long. They try their best by and large. When they don't, they get washed out pretty quick. But this is not something where at this point we stand here and start blaming. It's a time to say, let's figure out how we move forward. It's the 21st century. Let's work together, knock off the partisanship that is there to preserve the status quo, and let's start dealing with the realities that we face. So you're the kind of guy that we need. You're the kind of guy who comes forward, says, I've got an idea and let's work on it. And that's why I love the fact that you're calling. But I also think that you don't start off by walking in a room saying we got to find a problem by saying let's start blaming one group or another. As far as let me go back to jobs, though, which is how I wanted to finish this first conversation we had. The jobs we lost in New Bedford were jobs, by and large, that were highly productive. Efficiency was there. The product was good, reveled in, by and large. I mean, modern product, whatever it might be. We weren't making 8-track tapes. We weren't making sealing wax. We weren't there making black and white TVs. We were making things at many of those plants that I talked about that are still in production today and still being bought on the market today and still being sought after today. Those jobs moved overseas. Some of them moved down south, and that's competition between the states. And while we lose that job, someone else gets that job. But the fact of the matter is many of those jobs moved offshore. And when they moved offshore, they paid a lot less, and there were less regulations, and the per fully loaded cost for producing that product went down dramatically per hour. Now, I want to tell you that when, for instance, Fruit of the Loom underwear went offshore, and it's been to 2 or 3 different places since it's left Anderson, Indiana. And I can tell you on many days I'm wearing Fruit of the Loom underwear. I don't remember, as it went offshore, and I don't know, quite frankly, whether the quality went down or up, but let's assume the quality was the same. But I can tell you the price never went down.
Right.
So that means that a fully loaded price went down. It meant someone made a heck of a lot of money on that pair of underwear that I bought. So my feeling is that you want to keep America strong. You want America to be the consumer country. You got to have jobs. You got to respect people. You got to put them to work. You got to have hope for them, opportunity for them. And it takes one big economy. And that means that you may have a brain surgeon, but you sure as heck any given day have to have a streetcar conductor. And if you don't understand that it's a big economy and everybody ends up with a PhD in the work that they do because of experience, judgment, and the skill that they develop, then we have a problem. And I think right now we've developed that problem, and we have to start confronting it and getting people back to work in a meaningful way and respect them.
Scott, we're going to take a quick break here, but before we go, I just want to tell you my Chamberlain manufacturing story and why I'm is that there was a movie The Day After. Do you remember? It was in the 80s. It was an anti-war film. It was what would happen the day after the nuclear bomb goes off, because not everyone dies. And it's this show. It's this, I was a little kid, early 80s, and it's the movie about how everyone slowly dies the days after a nuclear war here in America, right? So I'm terrified of the movie.
It's an enlightening movie, a uplifting type movie,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm terrified.
I missed that one,
You really missed The Day After?
I did.
Oh,
I
my
think
God.
so,
right.
yeah.
So I saw the movie.
It was a TV movie.
TV movie.
Wasn't.
Yeah,
I did see it, yeah.
It was probably paid for by the Russian embassy. But anyway, so or Ed Asner. But anyway, I saw the movie. I'm terrified, right? So my father realized I'm upset. So he says to me, oh, what's the matter? So I said, oh, geez, that movie, and everyone died, their hair is falling out, and they're starving. My father said, well, don't worry about it. He said, that won't happen to you. I go, oh, really? He goes, yeah, you'll be dead right away. he goes, but this is the guy who taught children. He really understood the psychology of a child. He says to me, look, let me explain this to you. He said, you got a place right down the road called Chamberlain Manufacturing. He said, they are definitely on the Soviets' target list. They are going to hit that place with a nuclear bomb because they make all the weapons. And he listed a number of other places, right? He said, so don't worry, because he knew I was worried about living and then dying slowly, right? So he says to me, you'll be dead, kid. Don't even worry about it. And I went, oh, okay. And you know what? It actually, it really, really worked.
Now go to sleep.
Yeah,
right?
go to sleep. And I did. We'll be back. And good afternoon. This is Sunday Brunch. I'm Chris McCarthy. We have in studio with us former New Bedford Mayor Scott Lang, who's also a longtime member of the Democratic Party, a longtime member of organized labor and an attorney for organized labor. And this is Labor Day. And I want to talk a little bit about the labor movement and it's what it means, what it's meant for this country, Scott, and where do you think it's going?
I think in the in the 20th century, labor completely reformed the employment relationship in the United States of America, the organized labor movement, for the better. And it's given us, well, first of all, let's just start with tomorrow. You have Labor Day, right? So if there was nothing else, you have a summer end. And by the way, I don't believe summer ends till whenever it is,
I'm with
September
you.
21st.
Right.
I think rushing seasons is very dangerous. You don't want to do that. You rush through your life.
I have a Santa Claus on the roof. Is it too early?
Probably a few weeks
All
anyway. Right. I think that if we go to Sears right now, we'll see Christmas trees. We'll go absolutely be beside ourselves. I saw in one of the supermarkets on July 31st a Halloween exhibit.
Right.
Let's slow it down. Let's enjoy each day and let's enjoy the season.
I'm hanging pumpkins on my Christmas tree on 4th of July now.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
It's not right, and it's we don't need a whirlwind of day-to-day life and time. We need to slow it up a little bit, appreciate each other, appreciate our kids and our families. It's so important. Otherwise, you always feel like you're going to bed and getting up. I mean, you got to enjoy the day. So I know Labor Day is this siren song for the end of the summer, but quite frankly, there's 3 great weeks coming up. You'll be able to go swimming still. Make sure you protect yourself. Make sure you go in it with people, buddy system. Lifeguards may not be there. Watch the news for
Sharks
riptide or something. You got to watch out for the sharks. Yeah, but other than that,
that's a wonderful weekend.
The season. Enjoy the season. In addition, that's the shark situation with you, Chris, is based on that day after scare you had. I mean, it's kind of the same theme. So the sharks, well, be careful, but here's what it comes down to. The labor movement gave the average person in America, in essence, a 40-hour week, overtime, Social Security, the idea of Medicaid, Medicare, so in other words, health. These are all things that were bargained for that people eventually permeated into the population. Family Medical Leave Act, Fair Labor Standards Act. I mean, this is off of my head now. Equal pay, maternity leave, things that just make us a society that is a little bit more caring and decent, and also a society that there is some order between work and family. And I think that that's what labor by way of collective bargaining, and then by way of lobbying, and then by way of not leaving people behind, was able to accomplish in the 20th century. The 21st century, I think, is a real challenge for the labor movement, organized labor, and I think they have to lead. I think they have to rise to the challenge. There are going to be trade-offs. There are going to be things that you have to understand. A true economy may mean that it's a job may be more important than that one last push for an extra few dollars or few cents. Your benefits and protecting people from the standpoint of pensions, old age, from the standpoint of health insurance, are things that you need to bargain for, and make sure that you understand that the average citizen in this country has benefit levels that may in fact need to be raised, rather than worrying about, let's make sure that we get our last final push for a higher pension or a higher health insurance, whatever it might be.
Okay.
There's got to be trade-offs. There's got to be things where the good of the order has to include the labor movement as well as the overall population in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how they'll gain momentum again. So the idea of for instance, what happened in Boston with the Teamsters and the film industry, or the TV industry going in, is not a good look for labor in any way.
No.
I mean, there's got to be respect. There's got to be, everybody's got right to picket. Everybody's got right to demonstrate. Everybody's got right of free speech. But whether it's labor or anybody else, it has to be within some bounds of decency. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you lose the message.
Right.
And the message becomes so distorted now that you've hurt more than helped. So labor, I think, has to take some real strong moves forward in leading in the 21st century. I know they certainly can do that, and it's a matter of great leadership and making sure that they realize that many of the battles from the 20th century have been won for the benefit of everybody. Now you got to start fine-tuning that and moving forward.
One thing I found interesting was that the way Donald Trump has treated the labor organizers. He invited them all to the White House, and this is something that was interesting to me. I had on local labor organizer, and they were very upset that the heads of the Teamsters Union and other big unions, mostly private sector unions, had actually gone to the White House after the president got sworn in to meet with the president, and that they thought that no, they should not have even gone and met with Trump. And I found that to be enlightening, disturbing. That why would not organized labor go meet with Trump? But they thought no, that we should just be at war with him.
There may be some issues that you don't agree with, but you have to start with the idea. I don't think the president has conducted himself in a way that is appropriate for the office.
And again, this was like the first week,
right? But what I'm saying is that you need to. I was on last fall after the election. You need to try and find common ground, work together. This is not North High, South High. This is not great. We'll get more jobs next election, 2018. We'll get more jobs. We'll have more patronage. This is serving the American people, and this is finding basically common ground within tough issues that we haven't dealt with in 50 years. So organized labor should, every time they can, meet with Trump, meet with the Secretary of Labor, meet with any cabinet, official that they can. Plead their case, explain what they bring to the table. The last thing in the world, the Republicans spent 8 years shunning basically anything that Obama offered. Now, some of the stuff that Obama offered, perhaps they should have shunned, but things that basically you should have and could have agreed on, people used it for partisan points. Partisan points right now aren't, as the last caller indicated pretty clearly, partisan points aren't what people care about now.
Right.
They care about results. They care about accountability. They want to know, where are we going? Now, as I told last caller, it doesn't make a lot of sense to point fingers. Accountability means, okay, we didn't do it right, now let's get it right this time. And maybe new people have to do it, but one way or the other, the issues, it's easy to spot issues. It's hard to come up with the solutions to them. And then it's harder to bring the people together to make sure that the solutions are adopted and implemented. So boycotting anybody right now doesn't make sense. There's an investigation. I just wrote a letter to the DNC. There's an investigation going on, or several, that are going to find the truth as to what it may or may not be regarding the election, or regarding business interests, or regarding collusion. And then justice will prevail under our system, and meaning prevail one way or the other. But in the meantime, people better start working together and get results for the American people. The government is a big, big enterprise, and right now it's failing. And it needs to kick into gear and start preserving people's faith in the government.
Hey, thanks. Good afternoon. Thanks for holding your live on WBSM.
Quick comment. You say the government's failing, but you criticize the new leadership of the United States of America as conduct not properly for the White House.
Right.
And to me, that's not the issue. The issue is, you just said it, government's failing, and it's not the problem with the president. You won't give him any credit. And there's the problem, because that guy's going to succeed, and guys like that are the guys we need to run the country, not guys that are going to sit politically correct and say the right thing.
Come on, Larry, buddy. Thanks for the call, but we got to limit to.
You got to get him in the studio.
I want him in the studio.
Yeah, no, have him come to the studio. I'd love to talk to him. I mean, I just think.
By the way, Larry's one of those guys out there every day banging away. He's a business owner, and giving jobs and moving the country forward.
Yeah. So
and calling me.
So, well, we have something in common, and we both listen to the show. But and I don't know Larry, but I'm a business owner also.
Absolutely,
and I've got a payroll, and I understand the struggles he has. And I've been doing it since '78 in New Bedford, and love it, and consider myself a private sector guy. But I can tell you, it does matter that the president has not conducted himself in a way that unites people. So that's not a offshoot little, doesn't matter very much. Government isn't doing what it needs to do. You got to bring people together. You got to respect people. You have to have them feel that they can have confidence in you if you want to be a leader. If you want to sit on the sidelines and throw rocks, you don't have to do that. If you want to be a commentator, you don't have to do that. If you want to be a leader, you have to bring people together, respect each other's point of view, and not always fall over a tripwire or light a fuse if you want to be a leader. If you want to do something that stirs it up, don't run for president. That's my point. And I can tell you that I've spent an awful lot of time giving an awful lot of people over the years the benefit of the doubt. I can't give President Trump the benefit of the doubt. I find this to be something that is counterproductive, destructive, not appropriate for the office of president. Now, if he takes a step back and somehow can do a reset, I think everyone should rejoice in that. I also think, though, that the Democrats should work immediately with the Republicans to come up with programs that will begin to move the government forward and then present them to the president. I don't think there should be stalemate. I think we got to move forward.
The other thing I just want to point out, Scott, is you were one of the few Democrats that took on Bill Clinton regarding all the crazy fundraising and the selling of the White House and the Chinese money and all the other crazy things that went on. And you became Bob Novak, conservative, the Prince of Darkness, conservative columnist who's now dead's hero.
I just look. What I try and do is call them as I see them throughout my life, throughout the time I've been in politics. I began working in politics in 1972, in January of 1972, for Hubert Humphrey. So I sat down, looked at everything, and decided that the person who I thought most likely could beat Richard Nixon in a head-to-head, which I thought needed to be done, was Hubert Humphrey. Not George McGovern, who I got to know and really respect and think he's was a tremendous man, a real war hero, a great man from the prairie. But the fact of the matter was, I chose Hubert Humphrey, who obviously liberal but pragmatic, understood American working families, understood Americans' need for respect and the appropriate civil rights enforcement throughout the country. But the fact is that I'm not an apologist for anybody. Do it right. Do your job. Do your job. Do it right. And understand you work for the people. If you think you don't work for the people and you're an elected official, please turn in your resignation immediately.
Scott, we're going to segue here for a quick second to John Sapichetti, who's our sports guy, and you're a big-time sports guy.
Well, I try and follow it. Yes, I do.
And so we're going to have John join us here for a second. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL for about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we're going to get back to you. Hey, Sap, you're live on WBSM. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon.
How are you, my friend?
Doing okay, waiting for the rain to come. Kind of a sandwich day here, a Oreo cookie day where you got a beautiful Saturday, beautiful Monday, and in between on Sunday, which is kind of yucky. But,
I just keep saying we need the rain.
Sunday before the NFL dominates our lives.
I just keep saying, well, we must need the rain. We need the rain. That's what. That's the only way to enjoy a holiday weekend with rain. We need the rain. Sap, you are, of course, a longtime sports person. I tell people you might know something about illegal gambling as well, because what do you say about the FBI?
Forever bother Italians.
Yes. So Sap, give us your. We're rolling in here to America's biggest pastime, the NFL. Give us your thoughts, your picks. What do you think people should be thinking about as they look at the pro?
All right, going into the season, I think in the AFC, obviously the Patriots are going to win the AFC East easily. I like Pittsburgh to win the North. I like Tennessee to win the South, and Oakland to win the West. And then I've got Kansas City and Houston as my two wild cards. In the NFC, I like the Giants, Packers, Tampa Bay, and Seattle as the 4 division winners. And I like the Cowboys and Cardinals as the wild cards. When it finally unfolds, the Patriots will beat the Titans in the AFC Championship game. That's kind of my long shot special. If people want to weigh in on overs and unders for the entire season, I think take over 8.5 Tennessee. I think that's going to be a really solid bet. In the NFC, the Packers will play the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. This time around, unlike 3 years ago, the Packers will have home field advantage. They'll beat the Seahawks, and it'll be my dream Super Bowl, 2 number 12s, Tom Brady against Aaron Rodgers. And the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl this year over the Patriots 34-27. Barstool Sports agrees with me on that. They're picking the Packers over the Patriots. Sports Illustrated is picking the Patriots over the Packers. So I think I'm in good company there with that Super Bowl matchup. I think this is going to be Green Bay's year. Their defense is going to be good enough. And Rodgers just has that look like Brady had last year, like there's no denying him this year.
And, of course, we don't really we joke about illegal gambling. We don't really have anything to do with that, or you don't.
No, hold on one second. My phone's ringing. Hold on. Let me just make sure I can find out what those things are.
Yeah, your phone starts to. Now, when will your phone start really ringing, Sap? On Tuesday or Wednesday for the Thursday game?
I just hope it's not tapped. That's my biggest concern.
So, Sap, what do you think about this week? What are the Of course, we know the Patriots are going to win, right?
Well, I think they're going to win, but right now in Vegas, it's an 8.5-point spread, and it's Thursday. The NFL kicks off the season Thursday with the Super Bowl champion hosting someone. They're going to be hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, 12-4 last year, won the AFC West, lost to Pittsburgh in the divisional round. Kansas City is a really well-coached team by Andy Reid. Alex Smith doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but I just don't think they have the firepower to keep up with the Patriots. Although 8.5 points may be a bit much, Patriots still trying to move some pieces in and out offensively after losing Julian Edelman. The defensive front seven, I still have some questions about, but I think the Patriots will win Thursday. But I think if you're going to pick a side in terms of point spread, take the Chiefs plus 8.5.
Huh. Sep, what's your website if people want to follow you?
John Sapochetti, that's John, and I'll spell my last name, SAPOCHETTI.com, and they can follow me on Twitter at JohnSap25, JOHNSAP, and the number 25.
Who are the Packers playing in the openings?
Packers, this is a big game for them a week from today. They open at home against Seattle. That's why it's a big game, because I think eventually when we get to late January, they're going to meet in the NFC Championship game. If the Packers can win next Sunday against Seattle, get off 1-0, even though it's just the first game of the season, that would give them the edge in any tiebreaker against Seattle, depending on who could have the best record in the NFC. And then week 2, they go to Atlanta, rematch of the NFC Championship game. If they can win that, they'll also have a tiebreak over the Falcons going forward throughout the season. I think the Falcons are going to regress this year. Super Bowl hangover. I think they're going to go like 8-8. But opening day in the NFL on Sunday after the Patriots game on Thursday, the marquee matchup is Green Bay and Seattle. And if the Packers can win, I think they'll be off on their way to a 12-4 season, home field advantage, and it'd be tough to beat them at Lambeau come January.
We had a little debate here on the Ken Pittman show yesterday about what with the news department and with Ken. And of course, Ken is outspoken, as you know. What a little bit. What he thinks the Patriots will only lose. I think he said one game. What do you think? Do you think they got a chance to go to win it all? What do you think going to end up with this?
I don't think they're going to go undefeated. No, they have a tough schedule this year, Chris. First of all, they're playing 4 games against the AFC West: Oakland, Denver, Kansas City, the now Los Angeles Chargers, and they also have 4 games against the NFC South: Tampa, New Orleans, Atlanta, Carolina. Those are the 2 best divisions in football in terms of top to bottom. There's not one weak team in those 2 divisions, so that's going to take up half their schedule. And if you look at those 2 divisions, there are a lot of good quarterbacks there. You get the last 2 MVPs in the league, and Matt Ryan and Newton in Carolina. Those are the last 2 MVPs. You also have Jameis Winston and Drew Brees in that division. Those are all outstanding quarterbacks. And in the AFC West, you've got Phillip Rivers and Derek Carr, and Alex Smith's a solid quarterback. So they've got 8 games against those 2 divisions, and I think top to bottom of the 2 best divisions in football. There's no weak team in the NFC South or AFC West. And also, they play at Pittsburgh, and I know Pittsburgh has been, kind of a punching bag for the Patriots the last few years, but that can be a tough game in December. And then they play the Texans here early in the season. So their non-divisional schedule is very difficult. I think they go 12-4. There's going to be some adjustment here in the first month without Edelman and some new pieces on offense. And I think, a game like a Thursday night game in week 4 when they play at Tampa Bay, that's going to be a tough game, because you play a Sunday game and then you're going on the road on a Thursday against a team that I think is going to be a surprise team as well, Tampa Bay. That's going to be a tough one for the Patriots. In the NFC, Tampa Bay is my version of what I think of Tennessee in the AFC. I think Tampa Bay over 8.5 is also a good bet in Vegas to go over that win total.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us, John. Again, what's your website?
John Sapochetti, JohnSapochetti.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at JohnSap25.
All right, my friend. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, Chris. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
You too. Thanks. It was my friend John Sapochetti with all his football picks for the week and for the season. He knows his sports. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to be joined again with Scott. This is Sunday Brunch. I'm Chris McCarthy. Hope you enjoyed John Sapochetti. He talks fast, though. He's caffeinated, heavily caffeinated by this hour of the morning, but he knows his sports, and he does a great job with it. But Mayor Lang, thanks for sticking around with us. Of course, you're a sports fan. What do you think of the Patriots this year?
I think that they first, I want to say what John just did is exactly what I urged everyone not to do, which is move through the seasons too quickly. So he basically has told us the Super Bowl's on in 2 weeks, and let's watch it, and it's the Pats against the Packers.
Right.
I think, Tom Brady is the difference in the league. So if Brady's healthy, then Patriots are far into the playoffs, in the middle of the playoffs, and I would think would get to the Super Bowl. I think they found that other than guys like you and I, someone can play wide receiver or tight end and catch a pass and score a touchdown if he's the quarterback. You know?
Right.
He is. On the other hand, I want to say that there's always going to be someone they're going to play, and freak plays, and if someone's really hot, then then they could certainly knock them off like any other sport. I mean, they do play the games.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea, I mean, this is not just put this on a piece of paper, put it in your drawer.
Right.
It'll
The
be
game
interesting
must
to see
be
what
played.
happens.
That's an excellent
You
point.
got to play the games. But I think, my issue with the NFL, I used to love the NFL and the AFL and watched every game every Sunday until I realized that there were more games on than there was time in any given day or week. And then the other thing that hit me at some point in the mid-'70s was that they were paying more attention to the NFL than they were to space shots. So it was starting, space shot, they'd roll it all out. You'd see Mission Control. You'd have all the major announcers and commentators covering a space shot.
Right.
All of a sudden, all those guys with the same different faces, but same headsets, same type of set, same type of Mission Control, and they're talking about whether or not Darryl LaMonica or Joe Namath or whatever are going to have a big day on a Sunday. So we lost our perspective on it, I think. The interesting thing right now is the whole question of safety in football, and they're going to have to really deal with that and make sure they get it straight in a hurry here. And it may require some new rules changes, which in the long run the game will still be very exciting, a lot of fun, but may preserve the health and safety of the players.
Yeah.
And then if you saw Wilmer Flores yesterday foul a ball off his face, you realize maybe everybody in baseball now should be wearing the Carlos Stanton face gear.
Right. I don't know why they don't.
They may have to, because I've never seen anything like that before. I love Wilmer Flores. I'm not sure why, but I love Wilmer Flores. And to see him take a ball off the face after, I believe his two bats before that, in the game before that, he hit a grand slam home run, or one at bat before that, and then he singled his next time up in the next game, and then put one off his face. So everything's dangerous. You gotta just be very careful, but watch every game. They're all worth watching, and the guy who you don't think is going to come through may, in fact, everybody on that team can win you a game, whether it's the Pats or the Red Sox, whatever. I like the Red Sox young talent better than the Yankees young talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that long term, the Red Sox young talent are much more solid. I also think that Vasquez should be catching every game beginning next year anyway. I know last year he was hurt, but beginning this coming year, he should start catching every game.
You don't think that this you don't like this back and forth of the catchers giving some extra days off?
I like Sandy Leon, and you do. Yeah, you got to give a guy 1 or 2 days off each week catching. But I think Vasquez is going to be a really gifted young player. I really like his effort. I think the Red Sox have a really good blended team right now. They have some chemistry issues I think they're going to have to resolve. But the young talent on the Red Sox, I haven't seen a team like that come along in a long time.
No, it's fantastic. Scott, let's pivot back from sports to politics a little bit here. So where do you think organized labor goes?
Organized labor has to again look at how they can serve the general, not only their people but the general population. What are the really key issues? And obviously, it's health care, it's benefits now, it's health care, it's pensions, it's the idea of wage growth, nationally wage growth. Wage growth now has been stalled literally for 3 decades.
Right.
I think that it's, but the general population, there's nothing worse than, hearing that the disparity between organized labor or public organized, employees and your average everyday public sector employee is continuing to grow further and further apart. We need to have some sort of balance there. I think it's important. I think labor can do that. I think labor can once again be the driving position or the driving force rather for your everyday worker. But it's important that they do that. The other thing, I think, do we only have five minutes left now, Chris?
3.
So in 3 minutes, I just want to go to the reason of today's show, which is the back to school special. And the back to school special is extremely important. School started last week. It really gets in earnest underway this week. It's so important that every young boy and girl in the city get a good night's sleep, get ready to go, that they have great conversations with their parents, their guardians, their loved ones about school, that the families connect with their school, with their principal, with their teachers, that we realize that it takes the entire city to make sure that we have healthy and learned young people. And that, people say tritely, well, that's our future. It's not only our future, it's their future. And we have an obligation. When people say, well, you don't want to leave the future in a bad way for your kids, the point is the kids are going to be the future. You have to educate them, and you have to value them, and you have to realize that some go with their aptitudes. Push to make sure we have well-rounded, great citizens, but go with their aptitudes.
Right.
We need everyone in this society, everyone in this economy. Some kids may go to college if it's still affordable. Some kids may not. And on any given day, that won't matter. What will matter is the integrity, the value, the character, and the confidence and self-worth that every one of our citizens has. So we have to start looking towards that in the schools. The standardized tests, everyone knows my position on. Test all you want to see how you can help someone, but don't use that test to determine their fate or your teacher's fate. Make sure that you look at the test to determine what you need to do to continue to help. Not that you're setting up a caste system that has people no longer able to function in our society, and we'll send them a check. That is a $250,000 to $300,000 taxpayer unfunded liability burden that is completely needless and disgraceful. So my feeling is this. Drivers out there, the kids are back at school. Be careful. Watch out. A lot of kids don't have crossing guards. Parents are doing it. Parents walk their kids to school.
You're right, though, on the kids.
It may take a second longer for you to get to work, but
right.
Stop that car and let those kids go. God bless those kids. Love
and
those
be looking
kids.
for them because they're not thinking about it.
The kids are so anxious to get back to school. They're running around. Okay,
right.
They'll dart out. When you go by a school zone or the kids are about to go to school,
stay off your phone, too.
Watch those kids carefully that act like they are all of our kids. As far as education goes, parents, you got to get involved. Teachers, you do every day. You do the most important work in our society. Go and have a great year. And next time I come on, I want to talk about reading.
Stick around.
New Bedford's News Talk Station. New Bedford's News